Good morning, everyone. How y'all doing? Today we're in our backyard, giving you my very first tour of the flower beds that we have that I've partially planted. I say that with some hesitation because most of the plants that we've put back here are clearance plants. There are a few areas that are more deliberate that I know that I've wanted to put in, but most of them are clearance plants. And I'll explain that as we go, kind of why I've chosen some clearance plants as opposed to full price plants. Most of that is because of our German Shepherd. There are a few things I've put back here that he's broken limbs off of, and I can't be frustrated at him because this is his domain, and if he's chasing squirrels or whatnot, I can't be upset at him because this is his backyard. There are two flower beds that are pretty big that I haven't yet developed, and we'll save those for another day. But I just kind of wanted to show you a little bit of what we have going on back here. A few videos ago, or maybe it was just the other video that we just did recently, I've already showed you the Merit Supreme hydrangeas, where only I think one or two of them are full price hydrangeas that I purchased. The rest are all from clearance. And hopefully next year, these off to the left will be just as mature as this one in the middle. And then in between, I have lemon lime coleus and some impatiens. This area right here is kind of a new area that we've began to plant up. These carrots I picked up on clearance, but they're a few years old, and so they look super healthy and more mature. The hydrangeas behind it, those obviously are on clearance. Just barely planted them this year, and you can tell they have a long way to go. Behind that are calla lilies that I transplanted, and most of them are kind of done in this area. Behind our garden gate here, these are the direct sown flowers that I did a few months ago, and I've harvested the majority of them for flower arrangements. And then in the back you'll see lavender, carex, rosemary, even some geraniums. And those are for a different project that we have coming up that aren't at our house, they're somewhere else. Behind the carex you'll see a rather mature tree. That's a Potocarpus. It's an evergreen, so it never loses its leaves. And you talk about a good, solid shade, privacy screen. All these trees were here before we moved in. So we've been here almost 20 years. I would say that the Potocarpus, well, definitely the oleander, they are all at least 30 years old. And actually, I wanted to spend just a few seconds on this area. This probably could have and should have been pulled out when we first moved in to make it a little bit more, shall we say, beautiful looking. Oleander isn't the most beautiful shrub, in my opinion. However, when it's already so thick and so mature, it was difficult to pull it out knowing that it would take many years for me to develop a good solid privacy screen. And I'm sure the neighbors on the other side, they enjoy having that privacy just as well. So all these will stay here indefinitely, at least while we own the house. And I'm not sure if you can catch just on the other side of the roof just how large our camphor trees are in our front garden. So that gives you a good indication on just how mature those are up front. Salvia Lucantha is zone 9 to 11. It blooms starting from early fall all the way through early spring with these long, and I'll make sure I put a picture in, with these long purple blooms, real beautiful. They say it gets about 3 to 4 feet. Actually, at our church, there are a few of these that are well over 5 feet. So they can get really big. And if you live in a zone where it's super hot, I would definitely recommend this because it doesn't skip a beat in our heat. We have a few off here to the side that should look just as tall and mature as this one. But our German Shepherd has broken several branches off of them, and that's okay. The plant was only $1, but I'm hoping that with the area that we've kind of given him a more concerted direction on where he's allowed to walk, maybe he won't snap off any more branches. Just in between, you'll see Agapanthus, and all these we've divided from the ones up front, so I didn't purchase any of these new. White geraniums, bandana lemon zest lantana, and I think it's Paint the Town magenta dianthus. All these I've picked up on clearance, so I picked up several flats for just a few dollars, and all these will come back each year. You'll see some Artemisia that probably doesn't look super happy, but it is bouncing back a little bit more. I had it in its pot too long. So you'll see some of that right along the flower bed. And then of course some feathergrass and some irises. The Oklahoma redbud and the plumbago that I have against the fence, these are the two items that I knew I wanted here, and I've been really happy with this tree. So excited for it to even push more growth. This is just really our first complete season. We purchased this last fall, so we haven't even had it a full year. The plumbago, of course, will grow probably as tall as the fence, and that'll give a nice pretty blue backdrop against the fence. The potato vine my husband picked out, it produces white flowers. It's taken a bit of a break, and I'm sure it'll put another flush on before the season ends. And well, actually I see some coming up right here off to the edge, and this has done very well and eventually will cover the whole entire post. Off to the side here we have just more of the same dianthus geraniums. The geraniums are alternating pink and white. They used to be red and white. I moved the red ones a little bit further down. A little bit of Russian sage. I was going to talk a little bit about this plant real quick. I bought 2 huge butterfly bushes last year and had them in 2 pots that flanked a concrete bench that we have on our patio. And they did amazing. They flowered all season, and this winter they were struggling. I mean, they were struggling. I pulled them out of their pots. I put them in the landscape. They should look far more mature, and they should have already been blooming. I have an amazing one out front. My mom has the exact same bush at her house. It must be this big, this wide. Huge, huge blooms. Looks gorgeous. Mine doesn't look like that. However, it is looking happier now that it's in the ground. And I actually have one off to the side behind the redbud. You probably couldn't see that. That one has suffered a little bit more than I expected because my dog has broken a few branches off of it. But hopefully it will come back again. The feather grasses I'll have to rethink because they don't really like a lot of water, but I do enjoy their look. So I'm not sure. This one either I'll pull out or trim it back, but they kind of self-seed, so you'll see a few of them popping up here and there. And all these I will not have to take out. They're all perennial in my zone. The only annuals I have in our back garden are impatiens. So let's move on down here. These are Pink Sensation hydrangeas, and again, purchased them on clearance. Behind that are calla lilies, and these, probably because they're in the shade more, These calla lilies are super happy, and they are well over 30 years old. In front of the pink sensation hydrangeas, I planted more impatiens, and I love impatiens. I have them in the front garden, I have them in the back garden. Of course, the lilies, irises. Why do I want to call them lilies? The irises that I have off to the side, those are doing super well. These early blue hydrangeas we spoke about a few weeks ago. You can tell since then the impatiens have began to fill in a little bit more, and it looks much more colorful. And of course I trimmed back the purple trailing lantana. The Agapanthus are already shedding their, what is it called? Like their shell. There's a name for it, and it's slipping my mind, but it's beginning to bloom, and these blooms are so pretty and so delicate, but they only last just a few short weeks. However, the plant, the grassy texture, that just stays all year, and that's always a nice addition to the garden. In front of that is the rock and fuchsia salvia, and I picked those up I think for a couple of dollars, and I've ran out of slug and snail bait. We go through that a lot over here. I'm going to have to bait those again. But you can tell the hydrangeas, some of the blooms are already beginning to fade. We're coming up on a spread of over 100-degree weather for over 7 or 10 days. So we're going to be in the throes of summer here pretty quick. We had a couple of days where we were in the 70s, so unlike this area for June. We are normally 93 degrees, but we were in the 70s here for a few days. Behind me is the creeping fig, which I absolutely love. It is nearly covered the whole entire block wall, except for a little portion on the furthest west side. Yes, that's the side that gets the most sun. You can even tell in the bottom where our shepherd has marked them, where they're still pushing growth. So you'll see a lot of dead portion, but they're still pushing growth. So his marking hasn't, it might mar the bottom appearance, but they still look really, really, really healthy. And I'm so happy we did this. Moving on down here, and either side of the fence is flanked by Nandina. And this is a plant that, again, this is another plant that my husband really loves. And this one we've had for many, many years. Actually, it came with the house. It was still in a pot, which we never knew until we dug it up and moved it. And I think it's a lot happier, and it will push more growth now near the bottom now that we've taken it out of the pot. And then here, this is the wreath that I purchased. It's like a galvanized bucket wreath that I drilled holes in, and I picked this up in Modesto at Mulberry Lane, and I put different annuals in them each year. This year I decided to use impatiens. This is the lemon cypress that I planted in a window box a few years ago. I'll insert a photo of it. I think it was maybe 12 inches high, and then I think I had done a video a while back, and it was kind of, I don't know, maybe waist high. So right now it's sitting just under 5 feet. It has grown so well, and I'm really happy with where I put it. So I think it's going to take a while before it gets to its full mature size, but I sure do love the kind of lime green against the backdrop of the creeping fig. And then of course in the corner here is our kind of our work shed, potting shed area, which is painted a real pale yellow. These are clearance, Calibrachoa, and you know, with a little bit of time and patience, these will all look full. This faces west, so as soon as the sun comes around the side of the house, it will get quite a bit of sun. And then around the lemon cypress, we moved some geraniums, and I've kind of circled them in white and red geraniums back here. over here is actually, you can even see the black lace elderberry has a redwood branch on it. And let me pull that off real quick. We get a lot of questions on why we don't mulch. And there are only maybe a few small areas where we can mulch and it be, how do I say it, and not be dirty overnight. I'm going to insert photos of what happens when the wind blows in our backyard. I've wanted to try and do this tour for a few days, and each day we wake up and I was like, I don't want to give the tour. I'm embarrassed of what our backyard looks like. We have to spend another hour, hour and a half cleaning up all these. So we'll wake up in the morning from the wind, and these redwood droppings will kind of be everywhere. And I don't know if that's indicative of all redwoods. It just is for us, and I'll make sure I insert a few photos. The reason why I don't want to mulch is because once those redwood droppings come down, I have to rake them up, and I feel like I'll rake up most of the mulch. So there are a few areas where I can mulch, and I should, but I'm so used to not doing that. I wish I could. I love the way it looks. Back to the black lace elderberry. We had this up front on the west side of our front garden, and I thought I was actually almost going to lose it one summer. We had it on drip. It was barely limping along. We moved it back here, and you can tell it's not quite high, but it is growing wide, and I know in some areas they can get really large. This is the biggest it's ever been, and I think this is the second or third year I've had it. I'm pushing it, having it in my zone, because it's only a zone 4, I think 4 to 7. But as long as it's happy here, I'm going to keep it here. If I could, I'd get the lemony lace, because that's just as beautiful as the black lace elderberry. Here is our Meyer lemon tree that we planted a few years ago. Same container, same area. I think I've turned the container once or twice. It's missing a few leaves. Part of that's my fault, and part of that's the wind. I overwatered it a little bit too much because, you know, once it starts getting into the hundreds, I get really nervous, and I think I sometimes overwater certain plants that we have, but you can tell it has new leaves, like coming up here and here, over here, but it's all full of lemons, and every season I kind of want to ration my lemons and I kind of get a little spoiled because I don't want to get the lemons from the store, since these are so much sweeter and have so much more juice. In front of, or next to the lemon tree, you'll see more Agapanthus and some lemon zest lantana. As the camera comes around, this is one, sorry, this is one of 4 or 5 walkways that we've tried to direct our shepherd, and we're thinking of making some kind of a walkway that's not actual dirt. And you'll see as the camera comes around, this is his little area that he likes to run the perimeter of our yard. As we come around near the end, you'll see where it begins to curve, and he can go behind the oleander, and then he kind of pops out near a privet and the Potocarpus tree. So you know, he is slowly using the areas that we've given him. And I feel kind of grateful that he's kind of staying in this little lane, if you will call it. I know many of the perennials that I showed you, like the lemon zest lantana, the paint the town magenta dianthus, and even the geraniums. A lot of them aren't necessarily in bloom right now, and that's because I just recently put them in the ground and I picked them up on clearance. When they actually come into full bloom, I'll make sure that I come back here and do a short little video of what they all look like filled in. If I know that our shepherd can stay out of that certain area, I might slowly put in some more expensive plants. I would love to put a David Austin rose here or there, maybe a hibiscus. I'm just not willing to spend a lot of money on stuff yet, not knowing if our shepherd might break one of the branches from chasing animals and whatnot back here. So for now, it's just mostly clearance plants, but I think they're going to fill in nicely, and at least by the end of the summer, because all these do okay in the heat, at least for sure the lantana and the agapanthus and the plumbago and the Salvia Lucantha. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know it wasn't very long, and I have many more flower beds still yet to develop back here. If you get an opportunity to watch our very first video, you'll see just how barren this area is. I'll make sure I link that down below. You guys have a really great week, and we'll see you soon. Bye.